Hello, folks. We are about to get started here. Hope everybody's having a great afternoon. About 30-second countdown. All right, we're going to get started. First off, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. On behalf of the Google for Education team, our G Suite Enterprise for Education go-to-market lead, and our two tech leaders attending, we really appreciate your time and participation this afternoon. My name is Kevin Hodges. I am the Texas Program Manager under the Google for Education lens. Elaine, you can, there you are. I am the Texas Program Manager under the Google for Education lens. I'm based here in our Austin, Texas location. Cassie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cassie Caputo, also Program Manager on the Google Texas Education team, and I'm based in San Francisco, California.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Cola, also a Texas Program Manager for Google for Education, based in San Francisco, and a former teacher myself, so very excited to be here.
Awesome. Hello, Texas family and friends. Good to be reconnected with you all again. I'm Mike Patterson. I'm the North America Strategy Lead for G Suite Enterprise for Education Software. Excited to be here today to chat with you on this amazing solution. But the real stars of the show are actually going to be joining us from Illinois and Mississippi. So in the next slide, a little bit later, you're going to get to meet Chris Budzinski, who's the CTO for Huntley Community School District in Illinois. And then also we're going to spend some time with Wade Grant from Vicksburg Warren School District, not too far away from you all in Texas, in the great state of Mississippi. He's the Director of Educational Technology there. I'm going to kick it back to my good friend Kevin Hodges, who's going to lead us through the agenda for today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. All right, we got a packed agenda for the next 56 minutes. We're going to drive into our Google adoption across Texas, going all the way back to the first part of 2020 to where we are right now in October. We'll talk a little bit through the value add of G Suite Enterprise. We're going to dive into the security admin controls and the teaching and learning tools. As Mike just alluded to, we've got two great thought leaders that are from districts, bringing their district technology leadership and why they chose G Suite Enterprise for Education. We have a Bitly to record any questions that may be out there, and you'll see this feedback Bitly at the end of our presentation as well, where we would love some feedback from our Texas education community on this G Suite for Education webinar. Just a friendly reminder, feel free to use the chat feature at any time. We'll do our best to answer any of those questions that you may have, and really want this to be collaborative. Elaine, next slide, please. Okay, great. So here's a quick lens of our Texas statewide Google adoption. There's a few points here in particular that I want to have everybody truly kind of understand what this means from a G Suite and Chrome OS perspective. Number one, you'll notice both the Meet and Classroom adoption pre-COVID versus where we are right now are up substantially. And a lot of this is, of course, is due to the virtual learning environment that we're all in. But also aligned with all of the great tools that districts are taking advantage of right now under the G Suite Enterprise for Education portfolio. So all the new features in Google Meet, such as recording and breakout rooms, and the Google Classroom component with the plagiarism tool, and the team will get into that in just a little bit. The other side of this too is the Chrome OS adoption, right? So when you look at the trajectory there across the state of Texas, please understand that this isn't exactly the number of devices that are out in the hands of teachers and students, but this is actual this is actual devices that are being shared in the classroom. And if you guys know anything about Chrome OS and Chromebooks in particular, it's the strength of the device, it's the shareability, but the security components and the manageability and the scalability is really what's driving a lot of the great Google adoption across the state. Elaine, next slide, please. All right, so before I kick this over to Mike, just a couple really quick things, right? Why G Suite Enterprise for Education? So enterprise level features to help IT admins do their job. Again, we have two IT leaders here in the US. We'll talk specifically examples about how they're using the tools, how it's benefited their security and privacy issues across G Suite and across the collaboration tools. And the second thing is that these great tools help educators and students work and learn effectively and efficiently. Talked a little bit ago about Google Classroom and Google Meet. I know Mike and Cassie and Jess will dive into some specifics there as well. So at this point, I'm going to pass it back over to my good friend Mike, and I'm going to let him drive it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. So we're going to go a little bit back and forth to make sure that we're keeping you all engaged with all the different aspects. As Kevin just showed you, the kind of the three different buckets that enterprises come into schools with. So I'm going to spend some time with our security tools, starting first with just an overview of what the add-on of G Suite Enterprise for Education can bring to your existing G Suite domains. This is meant to increase interoperability, not add additional panes of glass for you to manage and protect your users in. So you see this list that's provided here with three main points: protecting data, protecting users, and providing insights. Pandemic or not, K-12 has turned into the target of bad actors globally. And they are targeting our students, they're targeting our staff, and finding ways to disrupt learning. And so all of the bullets here that you see in bold are actually additional layers of premium functionality, context-aware access and data regions when we protect our data further, protecting the users, things like the investigation tool, which I'm going to highlight later, as well as the security sandbox, and then providing insights. Because we've gone largely remote globally, the need for insights into what's happening with our learners and in our digital learning communities has never been more important. So we'll dive into some of those particular areas. The first place we're going to start, as Elaine takes us to the next slide here, is going to be the security health page. So this is one of a set of 4 core tools that drop into the admin console. The one thing I want to highlight is all the functionality we're going to mention today is still dictated with controls via your admin console. So all the policies and settings that you have in place are still in the ultimate control seat. The security health page, this is your doctor's check of your domain. For those of you that manage your domains, you know very well that Google, we like to make a lot of changes in the admin console, all for good, but those updates represent settings changes, different ways that you've set up your domains to protect your end users. So as we go to the next slide, some of the things that you benefit from on the security health page is being able to prevent security incidents. So this allows you to look across Gmail, Drive, Calendar, device management settings to find out if you have two-step verification turned on, what your settings are for offline doc access or calendar sharing, for instance. All of those things we can take for granted. All of those are also possibilities of entry points for bad actors or for abuse within even our own learning communities. Here you can apply policies around file sharing and do what I mentioned before of two-step verification. This is based on industry best practices as well as Google recommendations. So for every one of these settings, we're going to tell you who it's applied to, and then you're going to either see a green check mark or a highlight to a recommendation and a support page to show you how to change those settings. So security health page is a great place to go to. Definitely doesn't need to be a daily check like most of us avoid the doctor as much as we can. This is something you could check in maybe every week or so. As we flip to the next page, or next slide here, a great resource that we put together that even if you don't have Enterprise, I encourage you to take a look at to just familiarize yourself with what types of tools you would gain access to. And we built this shareable resource It's the 25 ways to use GECEFI, and you've heard us probably use that acronym as a word quite a few times. Only at Google do we turn acronyms into words, but we have come up with realistic scenarios of challenges that you face within your districts, and then how you can use the tools at Enterprise to remediate those threats. So for instance, with Security Health, you want a digestible snapshot of all of your domain security settings and actionable recommendations. This would allow you to quickly identify these areas, read additional information, and act upon it from there. So we'll share this resource out afterwards. It's definitely something I'd encourage you to look at, and we'll reference back more to this in just a second. I'm going to pass it over at this point to my friend Jess, who's going to dive into some of our remote learning collaboration tools.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. So you are all likely familiar with these 3 premium Meet features that are listed on this slide that we have made available for free throughout the onset of COVID. So the larger meetings of up to 250 participants, ability to live stream within your domain of up to 100,000 participants, and of course the option to record the meet. As of September 30th, these features have returned exclusively to our enterprise offering, except for the recording feature, which you are likely noticed is still available. The reason why is because we are launching a temporary recording feature later this year that will only allow you to keep recordings for up to 30 days, and you cannot download or share them. So it will be a different functionality than the premium recording feature, which you can now download, share, and save indefinitely. So once the temporary recording features are released later this year, we will take the premium away from the free G Suite users and bring it back to enterprise. So those are the features that we're likely all most familiar with. And on the next slide, I'm going to talk about the new features that have begun rolling out to Meet this year. So this is a high-level overview of all of the Meet updates that we have in flight. Several have already landed and some are still flying. So on the left-hand side are all features that will be included in the free G Suite for Education. On the right-hand side are enterprise features. Enterprise users get everything on the left and the right. So just to name a few, we've got hand raising coming to all, custom backgrounds to blur out their surroundings, larger tile view will allow display of up to 49 participants, additional moderation controls and interactive tools such as digital whiteboarding. And you'll notice likely that you have seen you can have this larger tile view now. You have the custom backgrounds, the Meet and Jam integration for digital whiteboarding. Hand raising is expected to come in Q4, as are some additional moderation controls. On the right side with enterprise features, I'm going to dive into these more specifically in the coming slides. So we can go to the next one. Thanks, Elaine. Okay, breakout rooms, the infamous breakout rooms. And as a former 8th grade teacher, I can understand how challenging it is for a teacher to go from an in-person classroom that they could modify and do physically interactive activities to have to stare at a screen with everybody in one place. So with breakout rooms, we make it easier than ever for teachers to mirror their in-classroom teaching methods within Meet. Teachers will be able to break students into smaller groups for differentiated instruction, project work, and activities. This allows teachers to organize learning in the most effective way for students and help increase student engagement by accommodating to students' learning styles in this new digital environment. This feature is 100% launched, and over the next few months, we're going to be adding new features such as a timer and an ask for help option so that participants can easily get the teacher's attention. Q&A features provide a way for students to ask questions without disrupting the flow of the class discussion or the lesson. So this is super helpful for classroom management. And in particular, I want to highlight my favorite feature here, which is the upvote function. You'll see the thumbs up in the top right corner of a student's question with a number next to it. So what this is that if a student has the same question as the one posted, they can click that thumbs up, looks like the like button, and the number next to it will indicate how many students have that same question. The questions will be automatically prioritized, helping teachers better support their students by knowing which questions to answer first. For better control, teachers can hide any questions and can enable or disable question submission at any time. Polling engages students to share their voice and to make learning more interactive. The ways that teachers can use polling are numerous. So periodically checking in to make sure students understand the classwork and aren't falling behind formative assessments, getting instant feedback to allow them to adjust the curriculum and understand when students require extra development on certain subjects. Polls can also make classes fun with icebreakers to revive class engagement, start discussions, or even debate a topic. Polls really at the end of the day are ensuring that students can make themselves heard and lead to an all-around more engaging, productive, and enjoyable learning experience. Now I'm going to hand it over to Mike to discuss our security dashboard.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. So yeah, moving right along here, security dashboard. So this has been one that's really started to gain some positive momentum and feedback in the IT, network admin space, mainly because this is that real-time snapshot of security incidents and reports that are happening within your domain. The image you see on the right-hand side here is a series of graphical representations of things that are happening to your domain. Spikes in phishing attacks, spam filter grabs, drive shares, inbound or outbound Gmails. This can be a 7-day view, or you can zoom out to up to 180 days. It's also incredibly customizable. You can build your own dashes and widgets within this. And as we head into the next slide, the one thing that I really want to call out about this is that each one of these charts are representative of these different types of occurrences. So Lane, if you want to head to the next one. We are looking at cyber threat monitoring is kind of a main one, right? This is one, unfortunately, that's happening on a considerable basis. And I don't want to steal too much thunder from stories and examples that our two presenters are going to share later, but this is happening more and more. You think about in that movie setting where you have that mission control center where there's monitors everywhere, there's graphs, there's charts, there's tickers. This is that for your domain. I've actually had a few G Suite administrators ask if we could disable that periodic reauthentication where you have to log back in so they could just leave this sitting on a monitor in their office to allow them to gain visibility. This is about gaining more insight, visibility into those daily, for some of us, phishing, malware, and spam attempts into our district. I'm going to pass it back over to Jess at this point. We're going to come back in just a minute and talk about how you can pivot out of the Security Center dashboards and launch into investigations to dive deeper into these types of occurrences. But Jess, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Great, so attendance tracking. This is also a feature that has already been 100% launched. And if I didn't mention earlier, polling, Q&A, and breakout rooms have all been 100% launched on Enterprise. So we are live with all of these features. With attendance tracking, we all know taking attendance can be time consuming, especially with remote classes. So teachers can save time with these attendance reports that include each participant's name, their email, and the length of time that the participant was on the call, including the initial join time and the exit time. These reports will be automatically emailed post-meeting, and meeting organizers can securely receive them and share with more than 5 participants. Later this year, we are adding admin controls to enable or disable attendance reports for the domain and host controls to give teachers the choice to turn this feature on or off for each meeting. With noise cancellation, especially now with everybody working from home and teaching from home and learning from home, we've got families and dogs and gardeners and everything going on. So now more than ever, it's really helpful to make sure that there's noise cancellation so that you can focus on what you're doing. And we have a quick little demo video to show the impact of this tool. I hope that you guys heard that. I personally did not. And if you did not, I am really sorry. We can send this video out afterwards. And yeah, sorry about that technical glitch. Let's go on to the next slide, which is going to be the last premium Meet feature that I chat with you all about today. And this is live translated captions. This is our one feature that is that I'm talking about that has not gone live yet. It's expected to launch in Q4. And we all know that closed captions are already available in Meet, and they really allow easy access to follow along with video meetings. I know I personally turn mine on so I can pay more attention. But to make this feature even more accessible, especially for our English language learners, we're launching closed captions in additional languages. So this means that if a teacher is speaking in English, a student can select to get the live translated captions in Spanish, which is pretty amazing. The languages that we are originally launching with are Spanish, French, German, and Portuguese. These are subject to change, and we do plan on adding additional languages as well. But really excited about this feature coming later this year to Meet for our enterprise users. And now back to Mike to tell us more about the investigation tool.
Thanks, Jess. Hopefully you've all noticed, and it's not without strategic planning on our end, that there is a fantastic balance to the tools that come with G Suite Enterprise for Education. It's not just the IT and security tools, it's also the teaching and learning tools. And there's a lot of great stuff that just came from Jess, specifically around Meet. We've got more good stuff coming with originality reports and some other tools. So I'm going to pivot into the investigation tool. And as I highlighted earlier, this is kind of the rock star of the security tools, if I'm being honest. And this allows you, with a matter of clicks and a matter of minutes, to identify, triage, and take action on issues that are happening in your domain, stopping those malicious actors, sometimes inside your own domain, other times external bad actors, limiting, if not completely halting, the abusive materials that could potentially be shared, or those oops situations where one of our teachers, one of our administrators has accidentally shared sensitive information or accidentally shared final exams in Drive out to their students. How can we mitigate or remediate those aspects? So let's move to the next slide. We'll look at a couple different scenarios here, targeting and blocking phishing, spam, and other breaches quickly. One incredible thing to highlight about this is that you can actually create automated tasks so that it can constantly run on your behalf the type of day-to-day scans that you may be currently doing with third-party tools or things that you continually have to build rules for. This can be set and built and automate the simpler parts of the roles that you have and allow you to focus on some more complex challenges that you're facing. I already touched on the ability to remediate attacks, triaging security issues, but I think the last one, and again, not to steal thunder from our guests today, the ability to take action, as you heard me say, in a matter of minutes and in a matter of clicks. This is really where we've seen the page turn for many of our G Suite administrators. So in the next couple of slides, as we go to the next one, I'm going to highlight some examples of what this tool can do. So for instance, abusive material being shared. You catch wind that a student is sharing content that's potentially abusive, could potentially be a staff member. You have the ability to go into the investigation tool, search by the document name. You could search by the actor or the owner. In that moment, you can change who has access to that file. You can delete the file. You can pull it back from all of the Drive folders that it's not supposed to be in. And then you can take time to review all of the log information. When was it created? Who owned it? Who viewed it? Who edited it? And when did it get shared out to the rest of your staff? So this is a scenario that's very realistic for our learning communities, whether 100% virtual or even in person in our digital learning environments. In the next scenario on the next slide, accidentally sharing files. It happens. Sometimes when you're typing in a person you want to share with, and they share a very similar name to one of your other colleagues, potentially based on how your contacts are set up, one of your students. If you accidentally shared a file that was not meant to go to a group, you have the ability to pull that back, to undo the share. And undo that access. So you can search for those, again, viewing the log information and taking action to fix that error that you've made. In the next one, in email triage, unfortunately, all of us have been in scenarios where we've had emails that were sent incorrectly. They were sent with content that wasn't supposed to go out. But we also need to know things of when they were opened, if the emails were responded to, possibly that we want to delete the email. We also want to know the content of the email. All of these are tasks that can be controlled for access, thinking about FOIA requests that we have to deal with, or who we want to see potentially sensitive materials. There are additional layers of control within there that require permissions, other things like that. So yet another example of the way that an investigation tool, how you can email triage. The next example that we'll go to is actually phishing and malware emails. We have those staff members that don't spend a whole lot of time reading the whole email address or look at the first letter and last letter or say, hey, this is an email from Kevin Hodges. Well, he doesn't have the G in his last name, but that must be his fault. I'm going to go ahead and click anyway. Next thing you know, you have a full-scale phishing attack on your district, spoofing attempt, whatever it is. You can remediate these threats, again, with just a couple of clicks within the investigation tool. One last thing that I'll highlight as well, all of these tools and resources within the investigation tool are meant to make the IT administrator, the security admin's lives easier. These scenarios that I've mentioned may not happen every day, but some of the tools that are out there can take sometimes 24 to 48 hours for you to be able to gain access to the data that's in your domains. Is there any way that you could speed this up and automate things for you and for your learning community? And that's what you hopefully have been able to see from these security tools. So I'm going to pass it over at this point to my good friend Cass, who's going to talk to us about originality reports.
Thanks, Mike. So originality reports help teach students to cite correctly, avoid plagiarism, and become critical thinkers, not to mention streamline the grading process for educators. It will help both teachers ensure both ensure authenticity in student work and inspire more critical thinking. Students can identify uncited content and unintentional plagiarism before they turn in their work by running an originality report up to 3 times per assignment. Originality reports compare their Google Docs against various sources and flag uncited text, giving them the chance to learn, correct their mistakes, and turn in their schoolwork with confidence. If you turn on originality reports for an assignment, the reports use Google search to compare a student's Google Doc file against web pages and books on the internet. So the report links to detected sources and flags uncited texts. Students can identify uncited content and unintentional plagiarism before they turn in their work by running an originality report, and they can do this up to 3 times. Instructors using Classroom and assignments in G Suite for Education, so the free version, can enable up to 5 originality reports per class for free. And with the G Suite Enterprise for Education license, teachers can enable originality reports for an unlimited number of assignments. So there is a little boost with that license there. Next slide, please. Thank you. And student-to-student detection allows you to compare your students' work to others within your domain. So we know that's also a common source of plagiarism. So you build your school's own private repository of all student submissions to enable student-to-student detection. Each school owns their own repository, which can't be accessed or scanned by anyone outside your organization. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mike to talk a little bit about Gmail logs.
Awesome. So the last piece we'll kind of tie off with in that button or buckets that I mentioned earlier is we have the security controls, we have the teaching and learning tools, but now in that very fantastic defined seat time mechanism of 5 hours, how are we proving engagement with our students, that they're in seats, they're engaged with our tools digitally and remotely? There is, powered by BigQuery and the Google Cloud Platform, the ways that you can export this reporting, developing custom reporting and custom dashboards using our analytics tool, a free tool that we have, Google Data Studio. And in fact, for those of you that tuned in for the Anywhere School and Back to School announcements, we actually shared some really exciting resources that are going to be coming out, very specific to Classroom, that are going to be dashboard templates that we're going to provide to all of you that are using Classroom currently as ways to produce engagement reports, Students being engaged in the class, sharing in the work, engaging in the work stream, if they're working on assignments, making comments, etc. All of those things to help build that proof of seat time for that 5 hours per day that we're looking for. So be on the lookout for that. We'll share some news related to that in our follow-ups from today. The other piece, really to not diminish in importance here as well, is the power of BigQuery, the ability to pull data in with licensed G Suite Enterprise for Education users. You can have a data retention period for as long as required. So thinking about the different ways that we need to meet state requirements for retention of data, and also the ability to analyze these logs using high-performing custom queries. That can be for Gmail logs. That can be for other functionalities across your domain. So a really fantastic set of tools tied into that BigQuery UI. So I don't want to keep you any longer from the people that you actually came here today to see. And I'm going to set the table with the next slide here. We have a fantastic relationship with our friends at CoSN that serve Texas, I know very well, having been previously at CDW and been a part of your learning community as kind of your go-to person for the state of Texas. Had a great relationship with their team, and of course they have national growth and reach. The main goal for K-12 IT is to improve learning while keeping districts and students safe. So I'm going to pass it over at this point to Chris and Wade. Chris is going to kick things off first to talk about what they're doing to do just this with their learning communities. And in addition to that, how the tools we've been talking about today have helped them achieve this statement. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the introduction. Hello, Texas. Thanks for having me today. Take just a few minutes to tell you about some of the stuff we're doing here in Huntley 158. A little background. Our district is far northwest suburban Chicago. We are a pre-K-12 district, just under 10,000 total students. So in Illinois terms, we're a relatively large district, not overly large, but we like to refer to it as a comfortable size. So we feel good there. We're a fully one-to-one district, and we have been since 2012. And when I say fully one, I do mean fully one-to-one, kindergarten through 12th grade. All of our students have Chromebooks. All of our students take Chromebooks home. Every day when we're in session, all of our students keep their Chromebooks all summer long. We're one of those districts that said we don't want to miss an opportunity to have a student have that spark of interest and want to learn something. So we want to make sure that they have the tools with them whenever and wherever appropriate. So that's just a little bit about us as a district. We've been on the enterprise platform. Mike would have to correct me if I'm wrong. It's probably going on 2 years now. And we were a very early adopter of enterprise. In fact, when Mike called me one day and said, "Hey, I've got some cool tools that might be right up your alley," he was absolutely right on with that. So I headed to the Chicago Google office and saw some early iterations of the security health page and the dashboard, those sorts of things that Mike was talking about. And I kind of fell in love because he had mentioned that it's about getting those cycles of time back in our day. And I could talk all day long about just the time that I've saved with these tools. So Mike had mentioned that there's other auditing tools that were out there. We had several of those, but we were struggling often with that 24 and sometimes 48-hour delay that he mentioned, because that was a real problem. We could be made aware of a potential issue, and our first response would have to be, yeah, we can look into that. I'll have to get back to you tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon with what I could find. Because truthfully, I had to wait until tomorrow morning just to find anything in some of those audit systems. We don't have that problem anymore. A lot of what we see now when we find issues, whether it be a phishing email or a document issue, we're able to track down in just a few minutes and remediate. So just a couple quick examples of that. My best two examples, one is from about a week ago, and the other one is just kind of that general student thing that happens not every day, but regularly. About a week ago, we were in a district level leadership meeting discussing kind of reopening schools, hybrid learning, those sorts of things. And I get an email forwarded to me from our superintendent of all people. And it was an email from a teacher that said, "I'm not sure why you would be asking me for my phone number. This doesn't really appear to be coming from you. You have my phone number already. I'm confused by this. Could you guys check it out?" Superintendent sends that to me. And I said, that's definitely not a legitimate email. I'll take care of it. Within about 3 minutes and about 5 clicks, I think, I had identified that email went to 319 of our staff members, all of them making it appear as though the superintendent was asking for their phone number. I was able to track all 319 of those, mark them as phishing, delete them from their inboxes in less than, I want to say, 5 minutes. So you talk about avoiding problems. And kudos to the staff members that let us know when this stuff comes up so that we don't have a delay and we don't have people clicking on things, that sort of stuff. Kudos to them for telling us that. And that's a big part of this. You got to get staff members on board with, hey, we can help. You just got to let us know that there's an issue and we'll gladly look into it. The other topic that comes up, and Mike had mentioned it briefly, is what happens if we're made aware of a student who sends an email or shares a document with less than ideal content in it. However it is we become aware of that, we become aware of it, right? We used to have to wait, again, that 24, and more often on those 48 hours to really see who had access to that document. Where was it shared? Was it shared? Where did it originate? Who owns the document? Who else has access? All those sorts of things we can see literally in just a few minutes. And not only can we see it, we can remove access. We can add access to, let's just say, building administrators if we needed building administrators to look into issues like that. And it's all very much seamless for us. So while we've focused a lot of our work over the last couple of years in enterprise on more of the admin side, we're starting to use more and more of those classroom and educational side of the tools as well. Many of them, as we were thrust into the idea of remote learning, they're coming to be more useful for us very rapidly. So we're certainly hitting the ground running on several of those as well. But I can't speak enough for the enterprise tools, especially on the administrative side and the security side, for really the amount of time that it's saved me in my work. Because with a relatively large one-to-one program, all of the support that we added for our one-to-one program is building-based support. So you think about centralized management of all these systems, it still comes to my desk for most of it. So I thank the Google team a ton for getting me that time back in my day to focus on other things, and would be happy to entertain questions should you have any. But that's kind of our story here in Huntley.
I am Wade Grant. I'm the Director of Technology for Vicksburg Warren School District and here in Central West Mississippi. We are a school district with about 7,500 students spread over 12 schools, 16 locations actually. And we've been using G Suite, regular G Suite for education for about 4.5 years now. We're 5 years into a one-to-one solution. We're having a great time with it. And then we discovered G Suite Enterprise and all of the feature-rich capabilities that G Suite Enterprise brings to the table. And finally made the switch over to that this past summer due to the COVID issues that were going on. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things that this has really brought to the table for us. One of the things that was pointed out to me earlier on in my career in education was that school districts need to be in the business of educating and not in the business of technology. And that's a controversial statement for some people, but you know, we don't need to be building too many large data centers if we can keep from it. So the thing that I love most about G Suite is that it's all in the cloud. Education anywhere at any time, whether you're in Timbuktu or Kalamazoo, that's what we want to be able to do, is to get instruction to our students. And so being the fact that everything is cloud-based, I'm eliminating file servers left and right in our school district. The concept of being able to switch my users over from a machine-specific device holding their data to placing it in the cloud and being accessible from any device that I use, whether it's my cell phone or my Chromebook or my Windows computer at home, or even a virtual desktop that we're experimenting with. That gives a lot of functionality anytime, anywhere for the user and getting them to understand that accessibility. Windows authentication. Now with G Suite Enterprise, you actually have the ability to authenticate a Windows desktop, not to Active Directory, but to your G Suite username and password. That brings a lot of additional tools to the table and seamlessly allowing me to move my users into a non-Active Directory environment. It's going to save us a lot of money, save me from having to spin up additional file servers and additional authentication mechanisms to keep that synchronization of usernames and passwords. I'm going to one directory service. A couple of the other features that I'll really enjoy here lately with the enterprise is that addressing those issues of accidental file sharing and accidental emails. We've had that just recently, and we were able to save some embarrassment issues within the district and address some potential FERPA problems, and be able to let that happen, to be able to go in and take care of those issues right away. Even though it may not be completely a FERPA related issue, it's nice to be able to address it as quickly as possible. One of the things that I really want to touch on just recently was some of the phishing emails that we regularly get. Being able to go in and launch that investigation and address the gift card scenario where we have a supposed principal emailing for some reason these phishing guys specifically like to target our coaches and external and additional staff, not just teachers, and key in on them wanting to be helpful by saying, hey, I'm in a meeting and I need some help. I need these gift cards, those kind of things. Being able to launch into the investigation tool, find those emails and delete them out of the inbox is a wonderful tool. It keeps things from spreading out because, as we know, educators love to be as helpful as we possibly can, and they want to be involved. And we have seen a dramatic increase in the amount of these types of scenarios in phishing and malware attacks since everything is switched to virtual. It's almost like everybody just knows all these scammers are out there, and they know that more people are in front of that computer and they're doing things virtual and that they're not used to it. So it's a natural bait for these guys. Finally, a great example for just recently for distance learning, we have a few outside applications that we use for some distance learning, and those emails that need to come in for verification of accounts for some of our students with those outside applications, and for example, some of our seniors need to be able to communicate with other colleges and other entities educationally wise. We want to be able to allow that to happen. Unfortunately, not everybody is using G Suite or Gmail, so their mail is not always getting routed properly. And you still have a few applications out there that use smart host forwarding. And so being able to use the email logs and go in and find those logs and see the rejections that are occurring in the mail routing, and being able to actually whitelist that specific domain to allow that domain to email my students directly at whatever container level or OU level has been a wonderful help, and saved us a lot of time and a lot of heartache and a lot of head scratching. Those are just a few of the examples that I love about G Suite Enterprise that it brings to the table, and we really do appreciate Google for all the things that they've helped with us with. I cannot talk enough about their G Suite support, especially once you get up to the enterprise level, the additional support that helps out. Being able to chat someone up real quick to diagnose a problem is wonderful. Thank y'all.
All right, Wade, Chris, thank you guys both. Unfortunately, I drew the short straw and now get to have the conversation about pricing. So in the midst of COVID, we were pricing out the G Suite Enterprise for Education at $48. We really wanted to give back to the education community, our Google community, and really support the teaching and learning. You've seen a lot of great tools, a lot of great examples here from Chris and Wade. And we really wanted to get in front of all of our Texas educators today and let everybody know that we have extended the pricing, the 50% discount, through the end of October. So effective 10/31/2020, the 50% discount is in play. So instead of the $48 list, the list now at $24. And ultimately, what does that mean, right? So you have an opportunity for a full domain licensing, which means the purchase of a license will cover your staff and will also include licenses for students for free. Instructional staff count includes educators, it includes coaches, administrators. It excludes your cafeteria, bus, and janitorial staff. So only your full-time employees and all of your students are free. We leverage the NCES database. So we find your district. We look at your teachers and staff. We verify that the count is correct, and then our partner ecosystem will work directly with you to facilitate a quote, and that is the procurement process for Enterprise for Education. So again, the 50% discount is in play through the end of October. Come November 1st of this year, price will go back up to $48. So really want to make sure that our Texas education community has an opportunity to take advantage of the 50% discount through the end of the month. Next slide, please. All right. I am going to be the moderator. I have seen some questions put into the public doc. I think the team has gone back through there and answered a majority of these. It might make sense to take a few of these. Let's see here. Mike, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here because there seems to be a lot of questions around MEET and classroom accountability and attendance. Do you want to dive into that one real quick?
Yeah, sure. So we've been doing the best we can. For those of you that haven't come into that bit.ly link, please feel free to do so. And I'll just say, if you share some common questions and feedback from your fellow Texas educators, please feel free to drop your email addresses into some of these questions. So right now, the line drawn between attendance is mainly with Google Meet functionality. So that attendance tracking that Jess talked about, every Meet, your Meet leader will have the ability to take that attendance. It comes afterwards in the automatic reports, along with the documentation supporting the Q&A or any polling activities that come. We recognize that many of you that use Classroom, I myself was a beta tester of Classroom when it first came out, and attendance tracking specifically in Classroom has been and continues to be a big ask. That's something that not only our work with TEA, but organizations across North America has been continued to be brought to us. What I can say is it's something we're working on as a team and looking at how we could successfully bring that as an integration into Classroom. My suggestion, for those of you that haven't had the pleasure of providing feedback to our product teams, that all of your feedback goes to live humans, that goes into buckets. That's how G Suite gets better. That's how we get better. Please continue to funnel the feedback of Classroom-specific attendance taking functionality. But in the interim, that ability is currently with Meet for a tool for you to use.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Chris or Wade? I also want to make sure we get them involved as well. Again, feel free to throw your questions in the comment bar there or into the public-facing doc. Okay. Last call. Any other questions for the Google team? Any other questions for Wade or Chris? We have some questions going into the doc. That's the reason for the hold. Mike, I'm going to put you back on the hot seat here real quick. There's a question that just came through here around video instructions on how to search for an email and delete it for all users. Can you talk us through that? That actually may be a good question for Chris. If he wants to dive into that, I'll throw it up to either one of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I can chime in first. We have a couple of different resources, again, that'll be in the follow-up. We have a Getting Started with Geseffi guide that overviews some of these tools. And then the 25 ways to use Geseffi also runs through this in a step-by-step process. We are actively working on some quick demo videos. Just a selfless plug of what Kevin's going to show you next is actually a live series that's happening right now where we dive into different uses across Geseffi, both teaching and learning and IT and admin. Chris, why don't you have a chance to chime in here too?
Sure. I was going to say that both of those resources, Mike, I use on a regular basis. But I will also say kudos to the Google team for making it simple enough that it was just easy. The learning curve in using specifically the email search functionality, the entire investigative tool, the learning curve was very, very short. Literally an afternoon just trying some different things. I would say that in 10 minutes time, I was pretty much fluent in what it could do in terms of how to search for emails, because you've got a myriad of ways to find emails, whether it be by subject, by sender, by recipient, by message ID. It's just so simple to do that I think once you get into the tool, you'll find that it's a space that was sorely missing for a lot of us. And the fact that it's so easy to use, it was helpful.
Thank you, Chris. And Mike, it looks like you just answered the question about the 1-to-10 ratio.
Yeah, so I'll chime in on this. This is something that when Enterprise was rolled out, kind of an industry rule of thumb for software, and of course it varies by company, is a staff. And I want to be clear of not a student to teacher ratio. For all of you that have been a classroom teacher, the Disneyland that would be of having a teacher and only 10 students in your class is not the reality of our learning communities globally, for that matter. So that is your total staff, so your instructional folks, your admin, library media specialists, and so on. So I'll say all that with the fact that we're also always willing to work with you in your learning communities. We realize that not everyone fits into this nice 1-to-10 ratio window. It is a source of guidance for us, but please feel free to ask. That's all we want you to do is ask, and we're happy to work with you to do what's best for your learning community. Kevin, I'll just keep rolling here since you brought me back on the mic. We've got automated licensing for students. So yeah, we have, and I'm just going to keep saying this because all good things are coming to you after our event today. We have a fantastic licensing resource guide, which I'm sure both Chris and Wade would have loved to have had, but we have learned from them. So we've built it and can make it available. And yes, automatic assignment of student licensing is a possibility within the admin console. You can do it there, or for those of you that use GCDS or GAM, you can also use scripting via those two tools, whether it's an existing system, identity management systems using our API. There's a lot of different possibilities of ways to not only initially deploy the licenses, but also ongoing license management. So great question. All right, Bubba, I'm going to shift over to your question. The major benefit or difference for G Suite Enterprise for Education for big districts compared to smaller districts. So this goes right back to really the genesis of Enterprise. Enterprise is a collection of tools that's actually sold on the business side of Google. And we have more than 5 million businesses globally that are using G Suite. Their needs are incredibly complicated, and they have the same types of challenges that we have in education. And what started to happen back in 2018 is that education organizations, large corporation size education institutes, all the way down to the most rural 50-person total with staff and student schools, have started to feel the need for some of these advanced security tools and functionality. So the reality is everything we showed you today, and then some that we didn't even get to, have a fit in every size of district. And it's possible you're using third-party tools to fill some of the gaps that we hadn't filled for you previously with our solutions, but now we're bringing them to you. And again, in the spirit of interoperability and single pane of glass management, the benefits are there. Opportunity cost or cost replacements from a budgeting perspective, a lot of different ways we can look at it. But the truth is this is something that has a fit for all districts, regardless of size.
All right. Mike, I think we have hit all of the questions in the doc, and it looks like we just hit, I think Bubba was the last question in the comment bar. We are officially at the 2-minute warning. Elaine, do you mind hitting the next slide, please? All right, fantastic. Again, Texas community, thank you guys so much for your time and attention and energy today. 2 last-minute housekeeping asks, and that is, if you could just please fill out the survey. We'd love a little bit of feedback on this webinar. Love to hear if this was something that brought you all value add with your Google implementation. Maybe you learned a couple new things along the way. Please, if you don't mind, at your convenience, take this follow-up survey. And we have some great Giuseppe webinars that are out there. You see the Google link there. Don't hesitate. We've got several other webinars and trainings and implementation modules that are going to be coming up latter part of 2020, and hope to have some continuous Texas representation there. So with 1 minute to spare, thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for the participation, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week.